Inaugurations gone wrong. The darkest and strangest moments in U.S. history. It's supposed to be a moment of unity, celebration, and the peaceful transfer of power. But what happens when the chaos of history creeps into the most sacred political ceremony? Imagine an inauguration so poorly planned it kills the president, another shrouded in assassination plots, and one held just hours after a shocking murder. These are the inaugurations they'd rather forget. Inaugurations are a cornerstone of democracy, a moment when the world watches as the United States ushers in a new chapter of leadership. But history has a way of complicating even the most dignified events. From fatal missteps to tense political crises, inaugurations haven't always gone as planned. Today, we're exploring the dark and strange side of U.S. presidential inaugurations. These are the stories of triumphs marred by tragedy, ceremonies overshadowed by scandal, and moments where the promise of a new beginning was stained by chaos. Let's begin with an inauguration that quite literally cost a president his life. On March 4, 1841, William Henry Harrison, the 9th President of the United States, stood before a crowd in Washington, D.C. to deliver his inaugural address. At 68 years old, Harrison was the oldest president ever elected at the time, but he was determined to prove his vigor. Rejecting advice to dress warmly on that chilly, blustery day, Harrison stood without a coat or hat and delivered the longest inaugural speech in U.S. history, an epic 8,445 words that lasted nearly 2 hours. His stamina impressed the crowd, but it would prove to be his undoing. Less than a month later, Harrison was dead. He had contracted what was believed to be pneumonia, though modern historians speculate it may have been typhoid fever caused by poor sanitation at the White House. Whatever the cause, Harrison's death marked the shortest presidency in U.S. history, just 31 days, and plunged the nation into a constitutional crisis as it navigated the first ever presidential succession. This fatal inauguration remains a cautionary tale of hubris and poor judgment, a reminder that even the most symbolic events can have deadly consequences. By the time Abraham Lincoln took the oath of office on March 4, 1861, the nation was already on the brink of collapse. 7 southern states had seceded from the Union, and fears of an assassination attempt loomed large over the ceremony. Lincoln's journey to Washington, D.C. was anything but ordinary. As he traveled by train, reports surfaced of a plot to kill him during a stop in Baltimore. To evade the threat, Lincoln had to disguise himself and slip into Washington under the cover of darkness, a move that some mocked as cowardly but likely saved his life. The inauguration itself was tense. Security was unprecedented for the time, with armed guards lining the streets and sharpshooters stationed on rooftops. Lincoln's speech, though eloquent, did little to calm the storm. He pleaded for unity, saying, "We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies." But his words fell on deaf ears. Just over a month later, the Civil War began. Lincoln's first inauguration wasn't just the start of his presidency. It was the prelude to the bloodiest conflict in American history. The Baltimore plot, the heavy security, and the secession crisis all underscore how fragile the Union was at that moment, a far cry from the orderly transfers of power we associate with inaugurations today. November 22, 1963, is a day seared into the memory of the nation. President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas, as his motorcade traveled through Dealey Plaza. Within hours, Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson was sworn in as the 36th President of the United States. But this was no ordinary inauguration. The ceremony took place aboard Air Force One, parked on the runway at Dallas Love Field. It was hurried, chaotic, and steeped in grief. Johnson stood beside Jacqueline Kennedy, who was still wearing the pink suit stained with her husband's blood. The iconic photograph of the moment captures her dazed expression, a haunting reminder of the violence that had just unfolded. The oath of office was administered by Sarah T. Hughes, a federal judge, making her the first woman to swear in a president. The room was packed with aides, Secret Service agents, and members of Congress, all crammed into the narrow confines of the plane. Johnson's rushed inauguration was a stark contrast to the pageantry we associate with such events. It was a moment of shock and urgency as the nation grappled with the loss of a beloved leader and the uncertainty of what lay ahead. For Johnson, it was the beginning of a presidency defined by the turmoil of the Vietnam War and the Civil Rights Movement. These inaugurations stand out not just for their chaos, but for the way they reflect the fragility of power and the weight of history. Harrison's death revealed the vulnerabilities of the presidency itself. Lincoln's tense inauguration foreshadowed a nation at war with itself, and Johnson's rushed oath highlighted the stark reality of violence in American politics. Each event forced the nation to confront uncomfortable truths about leadership, resilience, and the cost of progress. They remind us that even moments of hope and renewal can be tinged with darkness. Inaugurations are meant to symbolize unity and continuity, but history shows us that they are not immune to chaos, tragedy, or scandal. From Harrison's fatal hubris to Lincoln's precarious plea for unity and Johnson's somber ascension, these moments reveal the human drama behind the pomp and ceremony. By revisiting these stories, we gain a deeper understanding of the resilience required to lead a nation, even in its darkest hours. These inaugurations weren't just events, they were turning points, each leaving a legacy that shaped the course of history. What do you think of these dark and strange moments in U.S. inauguration history? Are there others you'd like to learn about? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to watch our next video. Together, let's uncover the shadows of history.